Depo Talk, Depo Talk. Another topic broken down on Depo Talk. Wonder what it could be. Let's check in with Jan and Rosalie.
Welcome to Depo Talk with Veritext principals Jan Ballman and Rosalie Kramm. Each episode looks at a deposition or proceeding-related topic of the day through the lens of two industry veterans with over 80 combined years of experience. And now, without further delay, we are on the record. Take it away, Jan and Rosalie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Depo Talk. I'm Jan Ballman, and I'm coming to you from Minneapolis.
And I'm Rosalie Kramm, coming to you from San Diego.
Rosalie, one of the trickiest, touchiest, toughest parts of the job of a court reporter is also something that attorneys really dislike. I'm referring to interrupting. And since that's a topic that gets a lot of traction in the Q&A pods during our complimentary court reporting webinars, I just thought it might be a good topic to break down today on Depo Talk.
You know, Jan, the court reporter's job mandate is to take down every word that is said in a legal proceeding. And let's face it, some days are tougher than others, particularly when you have people who mumble, they're soft-spoken, or people who talk too fast, or people who love to interrupt. You might have a day where you have a technical expert who's talking about some of the most brilliant things on the planet. You might have a day where people just are just out of control and angry. So when you look at these different situations that might come up, the reporter has no choice but to interrupt so that she can make a beautiful record.
I mean, 100%. Those are perfect examples of everyday situations that reporters are going to encounter. And there are very legitimate reasons why a reporter may need to interrupt the proceedings to ensure the quality of the transcript. Yet, it's still one of the top complaints I've encountered over my many years of managing court reporters. Like, don't send that reporter back. They interrupt too much. And I mean, I get it, but it's a little unfair, but who likes to be interrupted? It does break your concentration.
You know, the thing is if we put ourselves in the attorney's shoes, I can understand sometimes why it might get a bit out of control. You know, the attorney is trying to create a rhythm, question, answer, going a little bit quicker, so that the witness might not have enough time to think and gets into that cadence with the attorney. So there could be a strategy for sometimes why an attorney might start going faster and faster. But when you're going over 300 words a minute for longer than a minute, for me anyway, it's really hard to sustain that type of speed and still make a record and not have drops. So that the reporter is going to just need to interrupt and to slow people down. But the question is, Jan, how? How do we do it? I know a lot of times you ask the question or make the statement, it's not so much the why, but the how.
Right. I love that actual phrase. It's not so much the why, but it's the how. So I thought maybe we could throw out a few tips and tricks today, coming from our collective 84 years or so of experience in terms of how court reporters can master the fine art of interrupting. So I'll kick us off here, Rosalie. One of my other favorite sayings is phraseology. So how you say what you're saying makes as much or more importance as what it is you're saying. So the way you're phrasing something. So if you want to master the fine art of interrupting, I have a couple of tips, and they all focus around the letter C. So the first C word I would offer is courtesy. Above all things, employ courtesy. You know, just the basics. Use words of respect like counsel, sir, and ma'am when interrupting. Say please and thank you. You know, it's just really hard to get upset with someone who's being really polite and professional. This is, of course, as opposed to like, you need to stop interrupting, which is true, they do. But anything that feels like an admonition generally won't go over very well. So instead, use a polite request whenever possible.
You know, lately I've been using the word may a lot, and it seems overkill a little bit, but I'll say, may I ask you to please stop interrupting, or may I ask that you all slow down a little bit? And just throwing out that word may, people feel right away a sense of, politeness. And it really works using the word may, please. Like you said, those words have a lot of power in a deposition setting.
They soften things, you know, it feels different. to use the word may. I love that one. That's a great tip, Rosalie. So my next C is contrition. Be contrite. I mean, literally apologize for interrupting. Now, I know that may rub some a little wrong because it's like, why should we apologize when we're just doing our job? I mean, I get it, but the reason to do it is because it works. Remember, attorneys, they understand why we're interrupting them. They get it. They know they're literally breaking the rules of taking a deposition that they laid out at the start, but it is how we interrupt them that causes the irritation factor. I'm completely convinced. So just use contrition. Be sure and be sure it's sincere and without sarcasm. You can't go, I'm sorry. Be sincere. They can tell when you're being sincere.
Yes, Jan, during the pandemic, I decided to take yoga, and that might seem to be off the subject, but at the end of every yoga session, we have a namaste and actually teach us of a calmness in your persona. So now when I ask people to please stop talking so fast or interrupting, I do the namaste with the little hands together. Hello, attorneys, may I please ask that you slow down a little bit? Or witness, would you please stop interrupting? And for some reason, it seems to really work. It sends a message to the whole room that I'm just trying to do my job and a little contrite. So if it works, I figured do it, and it's working. I'm actually kind of surprised.
It's that universal, globally understood message of peace, or maybe they think you're praying, please, dear God, help me gain control of this room. But that's a great trick. And you had another one you shared with me. You were on a big Zoom deposition with a lot of folks appearing, and you employed the trick of apologizing in advance.
Yes, it was an asbestos deposition. So I was in person with the witness and two of the attorneys, but then on the Zoom were 25 more attorneys. And so before the deposition began, I said, excuse me, counsel, I'm Rosalie, your court reporter today. And I just need to let you know that if anyone on this Zoom objects or says something, I might have to interrupt and ask who was speaking because there's so many of you. And so I just want you to know now, I apologize if I do have to interrupt, but I might have to. And because I want to give you a beautiful record, I suggest perhaps you say your last name before you say something. But if you don't and I interrupt, understand, I just want to give you a beautiful record. And inevitably they all say, oh, please, Rosalie, yes, interrupt us. Don't worry about it. So they're giving me permission before the deposition even begins to allow me to interrupt if I need to.
That's brilliant. I mean, so you're employing the C of courtesy and contrition, and you're apologizing in advance. So all three, that's a winning combo right there. Very good. Okay, I have another one. The third C is composure. If you are cool, calm, and collected, hey, 3 more C's, you are much more likely to retain your credibility and reflect a high level of competency and command of the room. Even more C's. So all those powerful C's, be in control of yourself. That's huge.
Yes, Jan, and let's face it, when you're hanging on and you're writing as fast as you can, and you can see your little meter says they're going over 300 words a minute for a sustained period of time, you start getting mad inside. Sometimes I even think they're doing this on purpose because they want to be mean to me. And your brain just goes a little crazy. So instead of losing your temper, like stop it, just remember that they're doing their job and you're going to do your job in a nice, composed way. So you might say, excuse me, counsel, but we need to take a break. Or excuse me, counsel, you're really going to need to slow down, or you're going to have to stop interrupting, witness, and stay composed, even though inside you're very rattled, maybe a little bit angry, because that sends a message to the room, and the attorneys appreciate it very, very much. They know someone in the room needs to have some type of self-control, and so they appreciate it when the reporter does do that.
And there's probably not a working reporter out there, and if you're a new reporter, this will happen to you at some point, likely, but that throwing your hands in the air is sort of the universal sign that you're off the record in terms of court reporting. But that's one for the back pocket, last possible, tried everything else and it hasn't worked, because those are the sorts of things I think that can upset the clients. But we have to do what we have to do, but that's one that we use as sparingly as possible. Last, but probably the most difficult maybe, is be confident. Confidence. Being meek and weak will get you nowhere in the world of managing the dynamics of a depo or a legal proceeding. So it's really important to demonstrate a certain amount of confidence, but yet here's the difficult part, without compromising courtesy, contrition, or composure.
You know, confidence takes time to master, obviously, in any type of profession. So I suggest, particularly for younger reporters, just to act as if, pretend you're confident, pretend that you're not kind of shaking inside when everyone's fighting. I've been in depositions where people are almost coming to fisticuffs. So when I was young, I would be shaking. But I always acted as if I was under control and that I was very confident, and I would still take charge in a nice, polite way. And once again, the attorneys appreciate it. They see what you're trying to do, and they want someone in that room actually to settle everything down, because they're all in the heat of the moment and they need their record as well. So confidence is something that maybe you can practice if it doesn't come naturally to you to talk to attorneys that might be a little angry at a moment, and just on your own time, practice some phrases that feel comfortable to you to help calm everyone down to get what you need, which is your record.
I agree. Practice makes perfect. You know, you get more confident the more you practice. And also, hey, fake it till you make it, right? I mean, that's probably where that phrase came from. So, Rosalie, those are my tips on how to interrupt effectively and without upsetting clients. But, you know, you're out there writing every day, every week. What tricks have you put up your sleeve on how to master the fine art of interrupting?
Well, I was working with a young reporter a couple of months ago, and she asked me how to deal with getting spellings. She feels self-conscious that she's stopping to ask for spellings, or she thinks the attorneys all want to leave at the end of the depo and they don't want to wait for her to get her spellings. So I suggest that you don't interrupt during a deposition to get a spelling or clarify a phrase that you're not sure what it is, but to mark those spots in the transcript, and at a first break or at the lunch, say, "Excuse me, counsel, is it okay if I ask your witness for some spellings?" And sometimes I might say, "Please wait to the end of the day." And you can say, "All right, but I'm going to need about 5 minutes of your witness's time." And so expect that 5 minutes, and don't feel that you're doing something to anyone that they need to all leave at that moment. They'll wait for you. And if it's a particularly difficult deposition where there's just a lot of spellings or phrases that you're going to need help with, I suggest that you ask one of the paralegal, might be on a Zoom call, let's say, or an attorney, and "May I please email you after the deposition with a word list so that I can get all the spellings I'm going to need, and that way you all may leave now." And inevitably they say yes. And so that actually is a really great way to take stress off you, to get after the deposition a person that can give you all the spellings. So that's a couple of tips that I gave that young reporter, and I think it's really helpful.
You know, and it reminds me of a little story, if I can jump right in for a second, Rosalie, of a time where we did get that call from an attorney who said, "Don't send the reporter back tomorrow." It was a day 2. And that puzzled me because it was a super great reporter. And when I inquired if there was a particular problem, it turns out that the issue was that the reporter was interrupting because she couldn't hear the witness. And so when she would ask the witness to repeat himself, he would elaborate. So in other words, he didn't understand that she was just looking to have him repeat his answer, the part she didn't hear. He would turn to her and expound. And this happened with enough frequency that he ended up testifying a lot more than I think his attorney wanted him to. And that really upset him. So it's just one of those innocent things the reporter wasn't even aware of, but that's maybe a side effect of the interrupting for getting spellings and that sort of thing.
Well, that's a perfect example of my next point, which is a tip called parroting. I call it parroting. Basically, you parrot back what portion of an answer or question that you don't have. Let's say they're talking too fast and you drop a part of an answer. So you say, "Excuse me, witness, I need you to repeat your answer," and then say the words that you already have on the record. "Witness, you were just saying, I was at the house when the door," and then wait and let the person just keep answering, as opposed to saying, "Would you please repeat your answer because I didn't get it," or that you was interrupted, because then they might elaborate and go on and have all this big answer that you just wanted what they had just said. So parroting, I think, is another really great trick when it comes to prompting the witness to answer without elaborating.
I agree.
Okay, and then another one, crosstalk. I've seen a lot of transcripts lately where there's a parenthetical crosstalk, and I think it's a term of art that reporters might understand more than a reader of a transcript. So rather than crosstalk, I think it's important to put the dashes in if there's interruptions, but if people are speaking at the same time, I will write something such as a parenthetical, two people are speaking at the same time. And so anyone reading the transcript understands exactly what happened and why maybe something might be in their mind missing. And another thing that goes along the same line is I think it's important for the court reporter when there's a lot of interruptions that you're having to say, excuse me, slow down, excuse me, you're speaking at the same time, excuse me, please, if you can let the witness just finish their answer before you start the next question. Whatever it might be, I actually write that in. The reporter, would you please let the whole question out before you object, Mr. Miller? And that way, anyone reading the transcript can see that the court reporter is trying to control this day, but they're having a tough time because people are not behaving. So I suggest that you put yourself in, and if it's a lot of times, put, let's say 60% of the time that you make an interruption. And that way, if it is out of control, everyone can see that you tried to control this record.
It might be good foundation to have. It's obviously if you need to have somebody repeat something just in the normal course, everything's going well, you don't have to put that in the record. But I think your point is that when you're struggling and you've been asking and trying all those tricks in the book to try to get people to follow the rules of engagement, making our job a little easier, and it's not working, and those jobs and days do happen. Lay a little foundation for the rest of the transcript by showing that there were some issues. Otherwise, sometimes the transcript reads perfectly and you can't even tell that they were interrupting.
And the key, though, is to keep it out of your voice or your words that you're chastising an attorney in front of, particularly if their client is in the room. Nobody wants to be chastised by the court reporter or anyone else. And even though they should know better, I think using all these polite words and a kind persona really goes a long way in getting them to do what you need them to do. So,
and with regard to like the admonishment, I think that's really words of wisdom, Rosalie, because, and I totally agree, especially if they're with their clients, because attorneys do not appreciate being admonished by a reporter. And we don't really mean it that way, but again, this is where the phraseology comes in. And if it feels like a personal attack, like you need to slow down or you're talking too fast, you may hit a nerve and they may come a little bit back at you, a little blowback, like I'm not talking too fast, you're writing too slow type thing. So we don't want to go there, obviously.
Absolutely not. And another thing I do, I'm a bit of a demonstrative kind of person, but let's say your witness is very soft-spoken. This happened to me a couple months ago, and I asked her, please, I can't really hear you. Can you please speak up? And she just was a soft-spoken person. So I just started moving my chair and moving my whole body over until I was about 4 inches from her lap. And it really sent a message to her that, gosh, I better speak up because otherwise this woman's going to be right on top of me. And doing that helped a tremendous amount. She got the message. So she did start speaking up so I can actually hear what she was saying. So, and sometimes let's say it's out of control. It's a very difficult deposition and you're just at your wit's end. You can ask for a break. Say, may I please have a break? And then when they say, yes, okay, we're off the record, just use some body language to show that, oh my gosh. And usually you don't have to act because your body is really, your back's hurting or your arms are hurting. So show them that physically, this is really hard. And inevitably, when I get back on the record or they get back on the record, they say something like, let's be kind to the court reporter and slow down or stop interrupting. So sending a message with your body language can also be a kind way of letting them know that you need them to knock it off.
Right. And if that fits your personality. And I think one of the tricks I used that fit my personality was I would say something like, I'm sorry, I'm probably the only one in the room who can't hear the witness, but if you wouldn't mind speaking up a little, just for me, the reporter in my ears, and kind of takes it off of the person speaking too softly or mumbling, and it puts it back on me, a little self-deprecation, a little humor, whatever works best for your personality. But I do agree, those can go a long way. And then your tip about asking for a break, again, obviously we don't do that unless it's excruciating and needed so desperately, but I think if you ask for a restroom break, the parties are very hard pressed not to comply with that. So that's another tip at the last minute. If you just, the interruptions are flying and you're frustrated, and again, keeping your composure and all those good things, counsel, may we take a restroom break whenever it's convenient, usually gets you a break right away. So that's another good tip.
And yeah, I know, Jan, I've been lucky enough to go speak to some law school students, people about to take the bar and hopefully pass. And they want to know about relationships between attorneys and court reporters. And I tell them at the end of my little talk that they really need to be conscious of the record and understand that having a court reporter taking down everything that's being said is what they need to present to a jury or to a trier of fact. Bottom line is, if they allow lots of interruptions with lots of dashes, it can become very confusing for the reader of the transcript. And when you need a particular question and answer to be clean, and it's a mess because people are interrupting and there are dashes everywhere, it's going to be a waste of your money having a court reporter providing you a beautiful transcript full of dashes. So bottom line is, control the room if you can, and respect the fact that if a reporter is interrupting and asking people to slow down, there's good reason for it, and it's for your benefit.
It'll make for a much better transcript. That's a great tip. Hopefully those law school students take that right on out into their career and never forget that those words of wisdom, Rosalie. So, well, this has been a really great and important discussion. I think there's been some great tips shared that we hope will benefit you when you're out there trying to get control of a room. If I had to sum it up, I would say reporters should strive to interrupt as sparingly and carefully as possible, but also as confidently and calmly and courteously as possible. Because if you can master that fine art of interrupting, I think it'll just make your work life a lot easier and less stressful. And it'll also gain you bonus points with the clients. So those are my top tips. Any final takeaway you can share, Rosalie?
Well, I salute all you court reporters out there, because you have a very difficult job, particularly some days when people are interrupting or talking too quickly. But bottom line is, you know what you have to do to make a record, and you have to get down all the words. So if you can employ any of these tricks, tips to help you do that, please do so, because bottom line is, we want you to have a nice deposition day. And I think some of these things can help everything go much more smoothly, and you'll get what you need to do to get for your record.
Well said. I agree. Well, that is going to do it for today on Depo Talk. Thanks everyone so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And Jan, we're off the record.
Depo Talk, Depo Talk, another topic broken down on Depo Talk.